done, I'll email you a link to the session. So if one of your team didn't get a chance to see it live, or if someone else wants to see it, I'll be more than happy to share that along and pass it along. Also, this session is designed, as are all these vendor sessions, to be kind of a quick hit. So this is like an appetizer view of all the functionality we have. If you have questions or want to go into more depth, this will probably take roughly 25 minutes or so. So I'll answer a couple of questions if I can here. If not, see me at the booth, or we'll be happy to schedule a WebEx or an online presentation to go in more detail, more in depth and more detail for your district. So, integrated document management for SunGard. Content 360 is the product that we're going to be referencing. Content 360 is an enterprise class document management solution. And I say enterprise because it can really fit with all areas of your school district. So finance, human resources, and student records are the most common, but everything from payroll to building maintenance documents, everything can be stored inside Content 360. And we give you the ability to primarily do three different things. And one is to capture documents wherever they're being generated. The second is to be able to quickly and easily retrieve documents. The third is to be able to route documents for approvals through workflow processes. And wrapped around all these three pieces of functionality is our integration with your line of business applications. Whether that is SunGard, or if you're not fortunate to have SunGard for both student and finance, we can work with the other major vendors on the market out there. So our integrations, while I'm going to be showing them demonstrated with SunGard, work with most other major line of business applications on the market today. So with that being said, we'll jump right into the software. I'm going to show you what that integration looks like. And the goal being, with any sort of a document management solution, it's easy to take a scanner and plug it into a database and say, I've got document management, right? So I've got a place to store scanned documents. What's harder and what's infinitely more valuable is the ability to take documents and present them to our users precisely at the moment when they need them. So if I have documents stored, that's great, but the information located and stored on those documents is also vitally important at specific points in time in my job function. And that's what we want to be able to do. We want to be able to give your users access to the information they need precisely at the moment when they need it. Let's show a little bit how we do that. So starting off with our document retrieval integration, and I'm sorry this is so blurry up there and kind of faded. It looks awesome on my little screen. But what you'll notice is we have a button that enables us to retrieve documents based upon any screen that you're located on in eSchool Plus or eFinance Plus. Also, just a quick question, any Business Plus users in the room? Okay, I'm going to only talk about eFinance Plus and eSchool Plus then. But by clicking on this button, I'm able to view a document or set of documents that were related to Henry Radcliffe, the employee information we saw on the screen earlier. And we do that by basically reading where you are on screens, what are the data elements on that screen, and then using that in a controlled search method to retrieve the represented documents, or the related documents, I should say. Once I have the document on the screen, I can print, fax, or email if I have the appropriate security privileges. I can also go in and annotate this document, so I can do things like add notes to it. I can highlight information or even redact information if I'm serving this up for an open records request. So just a little bit more what you can do with the documents once you've retrieved them. From the eSchool side, I know this is a dated eSchool screen. Once again, we have the retrieval button up in the upper right corner. By clicking on that, in this example, I'm retrieving a range of documents. So before I show an individual document, here I have a range of documents all related to that student. Once again, if I want to go in and view the document itself, I just click the link and I'm presented with the document. So very quick and easy retrieval from within inside all of your SunGard applications. Any questions about that method of retrieval? Okay, so that's how most of your users will be accessing documents, but there will be often times where you'll be looking for a range of documents, or you're not quite sure exactly what you want to find. So if I want to find all documents related to a specific vendor or all vendor invoices, I can go in and I can click, okay, let me show me all the vendor invoices starting with the letter B, or between this date range and this date range, or between this dollar amount and this dollar amount. By typing in Boolean logic and just clicking the search functionality, I can generate a hit list of documents, and then once again clicking on the link to retrieve the document itself. So this enables me to see documents from related to a specific document type. In this search example here, I'm showing a lot of different document types related to an individual student. So I've got a lot of granularity as far as how I can search and access documents. I don't have to go to my documents from within inside my SunGard application if we don't need to. So any questions about retrieval? Okay. Also, I'm showing these, and I realize they're hard to read, but you can see the metadata that we have around the documents. This is student ID, so first name, last name for student records. For human resources documents, it's first name, last name, employee information, finances, different. Those are all completely customizable based upon how your district is set up and how you want to be able to retrieve those documents. So let's look at how we capture information. First and foremost, most of the documents that you're going to be generating are going to be generated out of eFinance Plus and eSchool Plus. Anything that's generated out of those two applications can automatically be sent to a monitored directory where Content 360 will poll that directory. When it sees those documents, it will grab them, inject them into Content 360, and automatically index them. Okay, so all the data elements that we were showing earlier, first name, last name, so on and so forth, are stripped out of those documents when they're printed, and the documents are captured inside Content 360. In most school districts we work with, this replaces the attachment functionality that you may be used to in eSchool Plus or in Finance Plus. We store the documents securely in our database, in our system, removing those large objects from your SunGard database. Now, anything that's going to be generated via fax or inbound mail, something that's got to be scanned, forms that are dropped off, those documents can be captured as well, but they do require some level of manual or advanced indexing. And what we mean by indexing is basically we're just telling Content 360 what kind of document type it is and what are the data elements I want to be able to search on to retrieve that document at a later date. So let's take a look at the more manual method of document capture. So this is our document indexing screen. I know this is hard to see, but we have the document here. Over to the left, we have all of our index values. So again, this is a human resources document, so it's first name, last name, employee ID, and so on and so forth. We're going to be seeing this screen a couple of times during the presentation because the information by which we grab and when we manipulate documents, we're going to be using this screen to manipulate the information on the documents, and I'll show you what I mean by that in just a minute. But right now, we need to tell Content 360 what this is. So this is a scanned document that was maybe dropped into a multifunction device. I'm back at my desk. I have the document. What is this? So all I'm going to do in this example is click on the document type. So it's an emergency medical form. I'm going to type in the employee ID. And instead of having to manually fill in all the rest of the fields, I'm going to use our auto-populate functionality, which goes into our SunGard Finance Plus database and retrieves all of the other related data elements to this document. So by simply keying out a purchase order number, a student ID, an employee ID, I'm able to index this document by dozens of different fields if I want to. So this is how most of our clients are using Content 360. This is how they're mostly indexing. It is one or two steps, and I have all the index values on that document. Any questions about that?
The scanned document, if there's a field that doesn't exist anywhere else but in that scanned document, do you fill it in? I mean, how do you add it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if there's a piece of information that's only on this document, I can either go in and manually type that in, or we can use advanced capture, which I'm going to show in a second, to OCR that information. A common example is, you don't want to pull for an AP vendor invoice. I don't want to pull the total from the purchase order data inside SunGard. I want the total that's on the invoice. And that may be a quality control piece that I have later on. So using our advanced capture functionality, we do have the ability to go in and OCR that information. What do we mean by OCR? Content 360 is reading the data fields or locations on a document and transferring that information into ASCII text or into data that we can use in our processes. So the first step in the OCR process is going in and grabbing all the related data that I want. We can grab data from a lot of different ways, So I mentioned OCR, which is generally going to be machine printed data, ICR for handwritten characters, OMR marks, so checkboxes, yes, no, so on and so forth, even signatures, so is the form signed or not? And we can go as far as doing line item detail extraction. I won't get into that in this presentation here, but it's something that if you're interested in completely automating your AP vendor invoice process, talk to us and we can show you how we can do that. So eliminating keying altogether. Now, once that information is extracted, one of the first steps we do is a comparison between that and the data that's in our SunGard applications. What we're looking to do is to see if the data is consistent or if there are changes that need to be made. That will impact what we do with the document later in our workflow process. Okay? If we see discrepancies or if there are other errors in the document, they will be highlighted. Again, we're in our indexing screen. The data elements, in this case, it's a misread data element. And we're not sure if it's a 5 or an S. We would go in, we would click on that. It will show us exactly where we extracted the data, highlights the character, and then we can go in and say, okay, well, that's not a 5, that is an S. I can correct it here. Additionally, this is a birth certificate, so there's not a lot of information on here relating this back to Ella Adams. But using Content 360 and our ODBC connections into SunGard, I can go into the employee ID field, highlight, okay, is it Eloise Adams, is it E. Adams, or is it Ella Adams? And once I select the correct value, we can automatically populate the rest of the fields using our auto-populate functionality. So here I have a birth certificate that has none of this data on there, but is now correctly related to the correct employee inside Content 360. Any questions about that process? Okay, fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about the next method of data capture. Really, it's PDF forms. So school districts are notorious for generating a lot of forms. I mean, everything from I need the lights on in the gymnasium from 2 to 3 o'clock on Saturday to I need to take 3 months off vacation for paternity leave. So there's a lot of different forms that are created. And if you go to any of your websites, I've challenged when I'm on site with districts, I just go to a website and just Google PDF and a list of all the forms pops up. But these forms contain valuable data, and most of them have a related workflow or an approval process that isn't handled within inside of your SunGard applications. That's a perfect place for Content 360 to start. So this is a form, it's a sample form from Radnor Township. It's a student maintenance form. It's a form that's filled out whenever there's a change to student data, and it's got to go through a couple different offices for approval, and it's a good example. Also, we like to have a little fun with this, so we'll show you that in a minute. So just by keying in the student's ID number, we can automatically populate a lot of this information. So a great example is and this is Mr. Jeffrey Spicoli from Ridgemont High School. A popular example is that we have a new hire and we send them the new hire packet of forms, and subsequently we ask that they fill out their name, address 15 times at the top of every form. Well, if that data is available through Frontline or through another application, we can grab that and use that to help populate our PDF forms and speed up that process. So Mr. Scully is going to go on an extended vacation. We can use all the functionality inside of normal Adobe Forms. So drop-down lists, he's got an emotional disturbance, and then I can go ahead and sign this and then move on to the next step in the workflow process. So again, anything that you can do inside of Adobe Forms can be handled in Content 360. Now, I mentioned earlier that most forms drive a workflow process because they don't exist alone, right? Forms are like potato chips. You can never have just one. So once those documents are submitted, they can follow a workflow process and then finally lock down to become part of either a permanent record or just a transitory record of events of what happened there. So let's just take you through a quick example from this workflow process. So this process goes from a number of different steps. Here are all the different steps, and I know in the back that's going to be impossible to read, but it could go to the administration building, to the principal, to the teacher, to special services, just depending upon what information is on that form. That's going to depend upon the routing mechanisms. So we're going to take a look at all the documents in the student administration building in their workflow. Here we see a list of 3 different documents that need our attention. Mr. Spicoli's document is at the very bottom. When we click on the document itself, it pulls up a number of different pieces of information. So the first thing it pulls up is the form itself. So this is what needs attention. Here are my steps for what I can do in the workflow process. And over here to the left, I've got a very convenient view of other documents that may be related to help me make a decision about what to do with this with my maintenance form. So I can check out a discipline form and a physical evaluation. I can determine, yeah, this is probably a valid request. I'm going to route it to the next step in the process and then move it on in the workflow. At each step in the workflow process, a timer is going off in the background. So if this is a time-sensitive form, I know exactly how long it's supposed to stay in each step of the process. And I can then send out alerts or notifications if a document stays inside of a queue for more than what I'm expecting. So if you say, hey, look, you've got 24 hours to respond to these type of requests, and 12 hours passes with no action, I can send an email. 16 hours passes, I can send an email to another person, so on and so forth. Any questions about that? This is a very high-level overview of workflow, but
so form can be due at the end of the month, and then after a week it gets a notification, and then a week and a half gets another notification, those kinds of things.
that's exactly right. Yep. What we're trying to do is we're trying to prevent this form being submitted and then going into Never Never Land. And then I've got to pick up the phone or pick up the email. Did you get that form? Where is it? Who did you send it to? So on and so forth. So if you're the submitter of the form, or if you're involved in that process and you have the appropriate security privileges, you can track wherever it is throughout the life cycle. We're also trying to replace the gentle reminders that you may be sending to some of your employees to follow up on items in a timely manner. Finally, at the end of this workflow process, these forms contain valuable data. Well, we're in a position then to take that data and then inject it into the SunGard application of choice via just standard delimited file uploads into Finance Plus or eSchool Plus. So the data is not going unused. It's being fully utilized by our line of business applications.
So we could create, like you were saying, a higher package form and populate that with a lot of basic information, and then we pick it up through this, and then we can utilize it in different, once it's in there, we could designate maybe in different areas where we pick it up.
Yep, absolutely. And you may have a form that's filled out in a very rudimentary fashion in the very beginning of the process, but it's completed by different steps or different people in the organization as it goes through the workflow. And then what you end up with is, again, data that can be fully imported into eSchool Plus or eFinance Plus.
And can you tweak it along the way once it's already established? And this form has really gotten bigger. Now we can utilize it like in transportation now or maintenance department, not just HR.
Yep, that's a great question. The answer is that it depends. Certain forms you want to lock down the data once they're completed. All right, or once they go through initial approval process, we don't allow you to go back and edit the information. Certain other forms, hey, it's no problem. You can change the data at any point in time in the process. So we have the ability to do either or. Great question. Okay, let's talk a little bit about additional functionality. Email has become a huge content creation engine. A lot of times, accounts payable is getting invoices emailed to them. Human resource information getting forms emailed to them. Inside Content 360, I can just right-click, use our import functionality, determine if I want to import the email or just the attachments. Do I want to index them now? And then click the import button and bring them into Content 360. Also, another kind of cool thing we did for Spring ISD, the ability to automatically create forms. So if you use teacher contracts, we took data located inside SunGard, generated forms based upon that data, and then automatically attached them to the record inside of Employee Access Center. So they were able to go in and to approve their contracts online. Another cool thing we do is integration with Teacher Access Center. The same access into documents we're able to provide to your internal staff, we can provide to teachers through Teacher Access Center. Looking in the student drawer for Lindsay Aberts, I can click on Content 360 integration button and retrieve documents that are related to that student. So.
Is there any security that goes on with that?
It is. So there's two different ways we can manage security on this type document. One is that we can assume that if you have access to this screen, then you have access to the documents that are underneath that to a certain extent. Not all the student documents. You don't have access to medical information and things of that nature. But generally, what a teacher profile would have access to, you can have access to it. We can additionally lock down those documents by campus ID. So if I have access to students rostered at this campus, I have access to their documents. If I don't, if they move on, then I don't have access to them anymore. So great question. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Finance Plus. And even though we love workflow and it's a great functional tool, if we see processes that are repeated over and over and over again through school districts, generally we will take that functionality and build it into Content 360. Again, we love workflow, but they're kind of complicated to build and they can be expensive to maintain. If we can build it as part of our standard functionality, we will absolutely do that. And this is a good example of one of the ones we've done recently. Klein ISD is rolling this out right now. So in this, the first step we're doing here, and the challenge we're trying to solve is, when I receive an AP vendor invoice, how can I manage it without having to key it into SunGard? Because once I key it into SunGard wants to pay it, right? Finance Plus wants to pay that invoice. But I also don't want to have a stack of invoices on my desk where I'm manually having to go through them at the end of the week to determine which ones I can pay, because I have to check them against what's been received and so on and so forth. So this is the process, and this may be different than your exact process, but it's more representative of some of the things we can do inside Content 360. So the first thing I'll call attention to are some of the fields that we're tracking on our indexing screen. So you'll see received no, keyed no, control number, and receive status. Those will be used to help improve our process in this workflow. So what I'm going to do is, on a weekly basis, when it's time to run checks, I'm going to go into Content 360. I'm going to search for all the documents that have not been keyed, all the invoices that have not been keyed, but have been received. And when I search for those documents, we will go out into Content 360, which has been doing background checks against the data in eFinance Plus to correctly flag those records. Once we see that, okay, yes, these items have been keyed in as received, then I can present this list of invoices that are ready for payment to our users. The users can then go and start processing those documents. So they can click the edit button, taking this back into the indexing screen. You'll notice we have a lot of information that has already been keyed in regarding this transaction. Ideally, in this example, I would have multiple monitors. So I would have my Finance Plus screen up on one monitor, Content 360 up on another monitor. I'm going to roughly simulate that by showing, okay, so I would go into my eFinance Plus Post Accounts Payable screen. This is kind of a bad split screen example, but hopefully you'll see what we're doing here. The first thing I'll do is key in my control number, which just identifies this check batch. After that, the only thing I'm going to do is click my integration button right here. And the data that is located inside of Content 360 about this transaction will automatically be populated into the SunGard screen. Conversely, we're going to take data located on the SunGard screen and populate and update values inside Content 360. So I click that button, we're able to grab that data, use it to populate the Post Accounts Payable screen inside of eFinance Plus. I have also grabbed the control number, which I typed into eFinance Plus and into Content 360, and I've updated this to say, yes, this has now been keyed in Content 360. Now, if I could scroll over on my Finance Plus side, there are some additional fields that we would like to have the users key in. So total is another one, so we would key in the total twice. That's kind of a quality control measure. But most of that data has only been keyed in one time into Content 360. So I've been able to say, here are all the outstanding invoices, They have been received, and I did not have to rekey that information into SunGard, into Finance Plus. Moving forward in the process, then, I could go through and type in my control number, hit search, and here's the list of all the invoices that are scheduled to be paid. I can scroll down, look at the total of that, compare it to the check register inside of Finance Plus, make sure they match up before that payment is additionally processed. So, any questions about that? Okay, does that mirror some of what you guys are seeing, or some of the challenges you may have seen in Finance Plus? Yeah, so, I'll take the nodding of heads as an affirmation there. So, just some of the things that we've been able to do to help improve some of the SunGard processes. Okay, one other thing that people say that Klein is a little unique in the sense that if there's not a purchase order in the software, when that invoice comes in, they require their people to enter a new purchase order. Well, what about those of you who don't have purchase orders, or you pay invoices that are not PO based? One of the new features we've got coming out towards the end of the summer is the ability to have HTML based forms inside of Content 360. So you could take that same process in your workflow, key in the information regarding the budget accounting, and then that information could once again flow into Content 360 or into Finance Plus if it makes sense. So something else that we're really excited about that will greatly enhance the ability for us to manage those types of processes. Okay, a couple more things. I've got just 2 minutes here. I'm not going to run through all these, but just some other examples. Payroll solutions, if you're on the payroll side, a lot of different things we work with from a payroll perspective. One of the things that we work with on, let me jump ahead here, from human resources is supplemental pay requests. So how do I make sure that I got paid for those 5 hours I tutored, and which check did it go on? That's something that another process we're working with. Inside finance, we've talked about a lot of this, but making sure that every document also has a retention schedule associated with it. Those of you that are in records management realize that student records can have retention schedules upwards of 100 years or more. And what does need to be saved, what doesn't need to be saved, what's part of the permanent record, what's not. So retention schedules can be set inside Content 360 managed. And then from a student record perspective, Lancaster in Pennsylvania has completely back-scanned all of their old student documents, and they now have nothing but a digital cume folders moving forward. So when years change, they don't shuffle student records from one campus to another. We just update a field inside Content 360. This district now has access to all the student records. This one no longer has access to those records. So a very elegant solution and something they're very proud of. Okay, we're just about out of time, but any last quick questions?
On the transcripts and report cards, can you take a large PDF and work it to a single student?
Yep, absolutely. That's one of the, so when we generate that file out of eSchool Plus, Content 360 will take what is essentially a giant PDF file. It will burst it, and so keeping all the pages together, and then individually indexing it inside Content 360 by student, last name, first name, whatever, however you want to store it. Yep. We do the same thing in PEIMS reporting. So if you have a giant PEIMS report, you can load it into Content 360. It will automatically burst it by campus ID, and then make a copy available to the individual principals, for just their information that's in the PEIMS report.
You also do have predefined templates or whatever you call them, doc types, so you don't have to be in the, file.
Yeah. For finance, human resources, and student records, absolutely.
And do you have the ability to do custom document types if we wanted to say district level document versus a student level document?
Yep, a great question. So can we set up individual document types? The number of document types and indexes you want to store is unlimited, and it's completely customizable by you guys. Yep.
So is it a one packaged software, so you don't have different
That's a great question. So it's kind of, it goes to how it's priced. It's priced by concurrent user, so the school district size doesn't really make a difference. And there are there's 3 different modules: the forms module, workflow, and then just the standard solutions. Okay, great question.
Where would the bursting PDF files?
That's just standard functionality.
Standard.
Yes. Okay, we're about out of time. I'll be at the booth. Thank you all very, very much. We've got a couple more heads up here. That sounds so bad. Maybe I should stop recording.